Thanks, David. If you've turned on your TV, looked at your phone, checked the news, chances are you've seen our special guest today, Dr. Oz. He's here to share his extraordinary knowledge and help us all navigate through this world crisis. Dr. Oz has been going nonstop these past several weeks, splitting time between the hospital on the front lines in New York City, as well as still producing and hosting the Dr. Oz Show. He's also a highly sought-after medical contributor for many news agencies, giving his perspective about the impact the coronavirus has had on healthcare providers, not only in the United States, but around the world. All of us here at USANA are proud of the work he does to bring more health knowledge to people everywhere. But he also cares deeply about all of us here at USANA and has generously carved out some of his precious time to speak with us. So, hello, Dr. Oz.
Hey, Dan, and to the entire USANA family, I miss you all. We would have had a lot of events together this spring, but COVID-19 threw a wrench in the works. It's great to be with everyone digitally. I know that even though we're physically apart, we can still be together. I am grateful that we have this technology and social media, of course, that keeps us connected so we can do our part to stop the spread of a coronavirus.
Dr. Oz, I know you've been extremely busy. I know you're on the front lines. You've got a deep understanding of what's happening at healthcare facilities around the world. What have you seen lately? What are healthcare providers managing to overcome the stress and overwhelming requests we hear about daily for care?
Well, I'm on the phone continually, dialoguing with folks all over the planet. Obviously, that's how I collect a lot of the information that I get to share with folks on television. And what I'm seeing in hospitals, both locally and globally, overlaps. Folks are exhausted. They don't know what the future holds. That creates an additional level of anxiety. Here at the epicenter in New York, we had a lot of difficulty dealing with the huge influx of patients, analogous to what happened in other parts of the world, in Italy and in China. And so we've learned what problems that presents. Ideally, we'd be able to at least slow the progression of the virus so we don't overrun the healthcare system. And that's part of the big challenge here, because when healthcare professionals, and they've told me this on the show and off the record, and there's good and there's bad. They're incredibly invigorated by the remarkable support that they're getting, but sometimes that support doesn't come in the forms of protective gear and ventilators, things that they absolutely need to do their job, because managing those supply lines has turned out to be a real challenge, and that's probably their biggest fear, that we would all probably share if we were there, which is they're going to have to sit in a room one day and say, Mr. Jones on the left, you get the device, Mrs. Jones on the right, you don't get the device. That's why these days it's particularly important, because as the virus surges in some parts of the world and it pulls back in other parts of the world, you realize that the fundamental safety net for all of us is each other. It's that interconnectedness that the healthcare workers feel, even though they don't get to actually see, for example, patients' families, because they're not allowed in the ICUs, they're not allowed in the hospitals.
And an interesting thing, you've had the opportunity to attend a lot of our USANA events and even spend time with Dr. Wentz, and he's founded this vision of the company as being the healthiest family on earth. And we've kind of built the health and wellness lifestyle around that. What do you feel we can do to help keep USANA remain the healthiest family?
Well, number one is stay home. I know it's hard to do because you're gregarious, you love speaking with each other, you love big events, but you got to stay home. It's the most effective way to stop the spread of the virus. Interesting new data from this CDC shows exactly how contagious this virus is. The average person with the flu would spread it over the course of 5 cycles to 9 people. But with this COVID-19 virus, it'll spread to 1,280. I remember the number. That's a lot of people to infect. So when you stay at home, you change that number back towards what the flu does. So use this time to reconnect with your family, be prepared, stick to a routine, eat the right things, make sure you get your exercise, find content that makes you better, develop a hobby, do the things that your whole life you wanted to do, but you never had time. Now you actually have time because you're forced to. And by the way, I'm going to put a survival guide on DrOz.com, and we'll make it available for you on a post as well. I put all of the items in there: sleeping, exercising, it's the basic protection, and the foods and supplements that are important, based on the best research that we're able to cobble together.
And I've seen on the shows and in social a lot of talk about wearing a face mask or a face covering in public. And there's a lot of back and forth and discussion around that in the media as well as online. Can you take a moment just to kind of give some clarity on how the virus spreads? What's the impact of something like this?
Our understanding of the virus has changed somewhat. We thought initially that it spread primarily when we sneezed and coughed, or maybe it landed on tables, you touched a table and touched your face. And those are all still valid. But what we have begun to appreciate is that one of the main ways this virus spreads is in the saliva of people who are just speaking. So you and I are talking, and I'll say the word, USANA is a healthy company. When I say health, that TH, I'm actually spitting a little bit, tiny bits of saliva with virus in them, and that'll go 6 feet away from me easily, which is why that's the distance that we pick for separation. So how do you avoid that? Keep that distance. When you go outside, wear some facial covering. I have a bandana that I use with little rubber bands. I put the video up on my social media. I'll share it with you as well. A scarf works fine. Again, you're doing your part to stop the spread of the germs in the air. The N95 masks, I wish we have enough, but we don't have them. And frankly, if it's the droplet particles you want to stop, that scarf and bandana, they're not as good as a surgical mask, but maybe they're half as good, which is a lot better than nothing.
Now, I know this has been going on for a while because I know I've been working from home, and it's always an adventure. The commute from downstairs to the office is brutal. I got to pass college students doing exams. I got to pass kids trying to work out. It's crazy. But how long have you actually been working from your home, and what are you doing to stay healthy?
So we built this studio in the basement of my home that you've been to. And it used to be a theater room, so it's soundproof, so the yelling and screaming of the kids outside doesn't penetrate quite as loudly. My team built it out before New York shut down, so we had the ability to seamlessly transition to here, never stop taping our show. What I do basically personally is I meditate. I do it at night usually, but actually not commuting helps me a little bit. I exercise at home. Yeah, you don't need a gym. You can just do yoga, and there are tons of videos online right now. It's pretty easy, I think, to get into a routine because the hour that we usually each of us waste commuting to work now can be converted into time to get some extra movement in, along with a great diet. And I'm meticulous about this because I think nutrition is going to play a big role in how I'll feel going through all this. And across the board, if I keep that routine going and don't fall off it, then I know that the days won't seem like they're merging into each other because that's a real fear for a lot of people.
As we look at what's going on, and I know you personally were trying to, or had invested rather into some clinical research, and we're looking for ways to figure out how to treat this COVID-19. How close are we to a treatment or even a vaccine on this one?
Well, the vaccine's 15 months away. That's, I think, what everyone I trust says. It just takes that long to make a vaccine. You can't give billions of people a shot if you're not sure that it's safe, and you're not sure that it works. But with a better understanding of the virus, we're going to get better at learning how to treat it. And there are all kinds of insights based on that understanding. But here it is basically. The virus gets into your body, penetrates through receptors in usually your nose cells. So that's the first place we can target. These are called ACE2 receptors. They're more present in older people than younger people. They're more present in hypertensive people than non-hypertensive people. Then the second major area is to look at what happens inside the cell when the virus penetrates. And it's an RNA virus, so it hijacks the cell machinery and starts to replicate itself. And you can block that. Remdesivir and a bunch of other antiviral agents, protease inhibitors used for AIDS, all these solutions that we've made up for Ebola and for SARS now can be used. We don't know how well they're going to work, but that's part of the equation we're trying to solve for. And finally, what ends up really hurting people a lot is not the virus by itself, but the overreaction of our immune system, the civil war in our body, when our immune system runs amok. And there are some medications that can work on IL-6 and tumor necrosis factor and other chemicals that turn on the immune system and overdo it. And so those are the medications that are being used right now until we get the vaccine. And I do believe that over the next few months, we're going to get more comfortable with some of these therapies. And so we'll have solutions that work better for people who do get sick. Obviously, the less people who are sick, the more resources we can dedicate to the ones who are sick, the more lives we'll save.